orphan spirit is characterized by a sense of loneliness, abandonment, insignificance, and isolation. And one of the key factors giving access to the orphan spirit is abandonment. People who are abandoned automatically feel like they have no value because the person who's supposed to be caring for me doesn't value me. They've discarded me. And so abandonment can very quickly and very easily trigger the entrance of an orphan spirit. There are other causes. Anything that separates us from the people that should be caring for us can stir up an orphan spirit. Mockery. The child grows up being mocked for their achievements. They may seem small and insignificant to the parent, but to the child, they're big. And if they're mocked for their efforts, that separates them from their parents. Minimizing does the same thing. Downplaying their accomplishments, downplaying their value. When I was growing up, I had 2 older brothers and a younger sister. My 2 brothers were a lot bigger than me. And my dad didn't understand. He didn't know anything about affirmation or that sort of thing. And he did his best. But I remember one day, he had to take the bathtub out and replace it with a better bathtub or something. And he said, "Boys, I need your help." So I was right there. He looks at me, he said, "I said boys." And my heart just sank. I realized that what I had to offer wasn't what he valued. So minimizing, discrediting. Kid comes home from school and says, "Wow, I kicked my first goal in soccer today." And one of the parents says, "Yeah, I guess you just had some luck today." A week later, the kid comes home and said, "Guess what? I got an almost perfect mark on my math test." Lucky again. Okay. Discrediting, taking away the credit that is due, drives a wedge between the caregivers and child. And all of these things have manifestations in adulthood. Humiliation, another one. I watched a father, a friend of mine. I was standing with my friend, is kind of on the side of the parking lot at a church, and a girl came along and we were just chatting, and this kid's dad saw his son chatting with this girl. He comes over there and he says, "What are you doing talking to a girl you don't even know?" He says, "Next thing you know, you can get her pregnant and then you're in trouble." And we're all just like that. And this poor guy, he just hung his head and just walked away, just absolutely humiliated. And I knew him for many years afterward, and he suffered from that humiliation for the rest of his life. He eventually passed away, but he suffered from that up to the day he died. And then one other thing is sexual abuse or other physical abuse, and that can do the same thing. It just drives a wedge between the parents or whoever is the caregiver and the child. And again, that will have repercussions in adulthood. The signs of an orphan spirit. A person with an orphan spirit will direct much of their behavior toward achieving significance. And because they've been taught by example and by word all their life, or at least part of their life, that they're not significant. So much of their behavior is going to be directed towards achieving significance. I remember when I was about 14 or 15, and my dad said something about a little funny noise in the car. I thought, you know what? And I felt I had to prove myself. I had to prove my value because he didn't see value in me. And so I got my next door neighbor who was 12, big kid for 12, and his father was a mechanic, so obviously it was genetic, right? He'd know everything, what he had to do. And also his father had lots of tools and lived right next door. And so he brought over a whole big box of tools from his dad's supply. And this is like 10 o'clock at night. My dad had gone to bed long ago, and we decided we're going to overhaul that engine. Well, we went to work, and we had parts everywhere. And eventually, we determined that, it was probably just this little wire that was loose here and rattling on something. But we had the whole engine apart. As much as you can take apart without taking it right out of the car. 59, Chef. And about 3 o'clock, now it's Sunday morning, right? And we decided we should maybe put this back together so the family can go to church on Sunday morning. So we worked and got it done like just a few minutes before it was time for everybody to leave. We didn't say anything. I was going to surprise my dad, right? Because I mean, he's going to get in that car and, wow, the noise is gone. How come? And, well, Jim and I overhauled it last night. And I was sure I was going to rise in his esteem of me. But the problem was that as we drove to church, it made even more noise than before. And we had to turn around half a block from home and park it. And I wasn't real popular for a little while. He ended up having to take it to the local garage. And the guy said, oh, all the push rods are bent, because I hadn't adjusted the rocker things. My behavior was directed at wanting significance, trying to achieve significance. If a person with an orphan spirit is in leadership, quite often they'll see the other leaders as competition. And they gotta do one up on the other person. If another leader does something and everybody applauds, they need to try and do something that'll make everybody applaud even more. And I've seen that happen. Another sign of an orphan spirit is difficulty connecting emotionally. And now, some of these things occur in all kinds of contexts and conditions, not just with an orphan spirit. But when you see this whole constellation of symptoms, it kind of points in that direction. Trying to force relationships. This arises out of separation from people that the person loved. Okay? Adults in this person's life that should have at least reciprocated the love, better still, initiated the love. And the person doesn't feel that. They feel separated from the parents, the caregivers. And so now they find it very difficult to make relationships. Trust is a huge issue. And so rather than organically building relationships, step at a time in a natural sort of way, there's an attempt to force relationships, invite themselves to parties that they weren't invited to, attempting to do things that they're not qualified to do, hoping that will ingratiate them to other people. Kind of like what I did with the car. Right? And a compromised sense of personal boundary. This is due to the desperate need for affection and attention. So these are some of the things that we have to address when we're trying to be mothers and fathers to people with an orphan spirit. So how do we help the person with an orphan spirit? There are 2 lies that people with an orphan spirit believe. Your needs will never be met, and you'll have to survive on your own. And you don't matter. And other people, psychologists, counselors, preachers, generally they say more or less the same things. Those 2 lies are what people with an orphan spirit believe. We need to respond to both of those beliefs when we become mothers and fathers to people with an orphan spirit. We need to present the truth from a loving Father, and that is that God will meet your needs. Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. Matthew 7:11, if you know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Heavenly Father give good gifts to you? Response to the second lie is, you are significant. In Psalm 139:14, it says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. That sounds like significance to me. And further on in Psalm 23, it says, he guides me along the right paths. Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Surely your goodness and love will follow me all the days of my life. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. That's significance. And so we respond with God's word, just like Jesus did in the wilderness when he was being tempted. He responded with truth. Didn't debate the lies, just responded with truth. 6 steps to resolving the orphan spirit. Number 1, we stop agreeing with the orphan spirit. And that means we refute the lies, those two lies. Stopping to agree with the orphan spirit means, first of all, we have to understand what that spirit is. Then we speak the truth, and then we practice the truth. Just saying, I don't believe those lies are lies, that's good. That's a good start. We're speaking the truth. We first understand them, then we speak the truth, but we also have to practice the truth. We have to start to live as though we no longer believe those lies. For example, forcing relationships. The person with the orphan spirit, one of the things they'll need to learn is that you can't build relationships that way. We've taught them the understanding. They're actually speaking it out now. Now they need to put it into practice and learn to build relationships in a natural, organic sort of way. It's just one example. We need to agree, the person needs to agree to adoption into God's family. Now, adoption can take a long time. It's not necessarily an instant thing. We say, well, you need Jesus in your life. Oh, okay, I'll do that right now. That doesn't usually happen. There's a process. And as Julie said on the video there in the interview, you have to belong. The people with an orphan spirit, they just want to belong because they've been cut off from the people that should be looking after them, and they really have a need to belong. And as John Wimber said, I think it was John Wimber, some people need to belong before they can believe. So this can be a process, and it doesn't happen all at once. In God's family, orphanhood is resolved by adoption into his family. And in John 14, it says, Jesus said, I will not leave you as orphans. Number 3, freedom through prayer. And this is a topic that we're going to address in the last session. We're going to spend quite a bit of time on freedom prayer. Okay, so I won't go too deeply into it now. Freedom prayer, 2 kinds of freedom that we're talking about here. One is freedom from demonic presence, and the other is freedom from dysfunctional behavior and habits and activities. And those are 2 very different things. Yeah, so we'll look at that in the last session a lot more.